What's going on, everybody? I'm Josh Meek, the Uber Geek. This is pretty decent. We're talking about the Super Nintendo Classic, which was just announced, coming out in September. It is a follow-up to the NES Classic. And, you know, one of the things when I got my Famicom Mini, which is the Japanese version of the NES Classic, one of the things I was excited about doing to it, and I did do to it, was hack it, where basically you could run any ROM you wanted off of it, run the full ROM set. So not exactly the most legal thing in the world, kind of a gray area, of course, but it gave you that ability. And these things were super simple to hack. You plugged in a USB cord, and the same USB cord that would be used to power it, if you plugged it into the computer, you were able to transfer data over that USB connection. For some reason, it carried data. And then that was a perfect avenue for this thing to be, you know, hacked wide open. And even though it does often lead to piracy, and piracy on a current system is a terrible thing. I hate when a system just completely keels over because it gets hacked. Like the PSP, it really suffered from that, right? It was very easy to pirate games for the PSP, and because of that, all of the support for the PSP dried up. I hate seeing that. But I think it's really cool when consumers can get in and really get at the guts of a device and really pull extra power out of a device that wasn't originally intended to be there. For example, I think it's really neat when you're able to, like, jailbreak your phone and add all kinds of weird, crazy apps to it. Or, you know, of course, Android has all that, like, built in, right? Where you can do all kinds of crazy, weird stuff to it. So it was that same thing that I loved about the, you know, all the hacks that were out for the NES Classic. Yes, they did go down the route of letting you play a bunch of ROMs on it, but let you play games that, like, weren't originally intended for the system, and they're kind of slotting them in where they weren't supposed to be. And it's interesting to figure out how all that works together, and if that works at all. And it really gives you insight into how Nintendo built this interface and how they intended for it to run, gives you some insight in whether they ever had planned on, like, upgrading it down the road to let you put more games on it, all those sorts of things. So the big question for me with the Super NES Classic coming out very soon is if it's running on the exact same hardware, and if that USB interface will transfer data once again. I think the big question that Nintendo will have to answer here for us as this comes out is, do they care about people hacking it? Do they care about that kind of piracy? I mean, if the Super Nintendo was a modern console and it was that easy to hack, yeah, they should be doing something to stop it. And I would be right behind them, like, egging them on, like, no, do whatever you can. Keep this from happening. This is a terrible thing. Because we want the console to stay relevant. We want you to be able to still sell software. But, you know, the Super Nintendo, long past its lifetime, they're not trying to go out and sell Super Nintendo games anymore. They're just trying to sell you this package, right? This already existing all-in-one package. So if you buy it, and then you void your warranty and hack it and do all kinds of crazy stuff to it, Nintendo doesn't really care because they already got your money, right? Or at least that's how I'm picturing it. So it'll be interesting for me if they do actually act like they care and take steps to secure this device more than they did the NES Classic, or if we find out, yeah, they did take that approach of they don't really care. They want that money up front. They're making money on the box. If you want to hack it, go crazy, do what you're gonna do. They're not really going to, like, spend a ton of time and money going out of their way to keep you from doing that. So I think that's interesting, and I think especially because this is such a quick follow-up to the NES Classic. It's just coming just a year later. It looks very similar. I would imagine it's probably running the same software. If I had to guess, I would say that this one is going to be just as susceptible to all the hacking issues as the first one. Which, again, pros and cons. I think it's really interesting. We get to dig into this box and figure out how it works. But, you know, it's interesting what a company maybe would take that approach of, you know, sort of a hands-off, we don't really care what you do with our devices once we ship them out. And I think that only works because of the weird, unique case of these kind of all-inclusive classic boxes. But yeah, so we'll see when it comes out in September what you can do with it.